GolfNewsRI presents the Golf Dudes Podcast. Here are the dudes.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Golf Dudes Podcast. I'm Joe Calabro. Thanks for tuning in. Happy Thursday. Happy almost weekend. And I'm pumped. This weekend we have the Stan Baluik Tournament at Kirkbrae to honor Kirkbrae's legendary pro, Stan Baluik. So that'll be fun. I'm playing with my buddy Dan. Try to win the whole thing this week. So I'm pumped for that. 27 holes on Saturday. Hopefully I can get through all 27. That's a lot of golf. And then 18 on Sunday, match play. Should be great. So I'm excited for that coming up this weekend. I'm sure you're all excited for your own golf as well. The weather looks questionable, especially for Friday. Friday doesn't look great, I guess. But hopefully the weather holds out on the weekend and we can all get our golf tournaments and golf rounds in. So I'm pumped for that. Anyway, thanks for tuning in to the Golf Dudes Podcast. A few things I want to hit on. Then I'm actually going to play my interview with Stan from I think 2 years ago. I sat down with him for almost a full half an hour. It was a cool interview, a cool conversation. And so in honor of the Stan Baluik Tournament this weekend at Kirkbrae, we're gonna go back to the past and pull out the interview so people can watch it. Obviously, GolfNewsRI was at a different point at that time. Now we're I would say significantly bigger, have a significantly bigger following. So perhaps people didn't see it. We'll also re-social just the interview itself, probably Friday morning or so. So look out for that. But if you want to see it, it'll be right here on the Golf Dudes Podcast coming up in just a few short minutes. A few things to hit on. We did a big week in pro golf, and I'm not necessarily talking about the PGA Tour, although it certainly is a big week for them as well. We have Patrick Welch and Davis Chatfield playing on the Korn Ferry Tour as they start week one of the Korn Ferry Tour finals. It's a 4-tournament run here that ends in early October, and they're both in position to make a run. Now, as I wrote about, and you can see the article on GolfNewsRI.com, Patrick is I think 71st, and Davis is 70th in the points list. The top 30 players get PGA Tour cards. Obviously, they're a ways away from the top 30. However, good finishes in these tournaments, or certainly a win for sure, can bump you right up and put you right in contention. So they still have a chance. Anything can happen, and it's definitely going to be exciting to watch. I mean, Patrick had that big tie for third finish last week's tournament. That took him from, like 116th in the points list to 70th, right? Or 71st, whatever it is. And so, you make significant jumps. And if he had finished solo third, which there was a chance he could have, if he had finished solo third, he would have gotten even more points. So anything can happen. They're on the outside looking in right now, but there's still a ways to go. And, if they're in good finishes and again, a win would probably could potentially lock up a PGA Tour card, but certainly a good finishes can get them there into that final tournament. So that's what's going on the Korn Ferry Tour. We'll be following it all the way through, of course, daily. They are on the course now as we speak, as we tape this podcast. So good luck to them. Then you have on PGA Tour Canada, which we put up on Thursday morning, which you may have seen. Francoeur in the Fortinet Cup. Now, the Fortinet Cup is again PGA Tour Canada's version of kind of the Korn Ferry Tour points thing, or the FedEx Cup to a certain extent. So the Fortinet Cup, and as we wrote, is top 5 finishers in it get exemptions onto the Korn Ferry Tour for next season. So the top finisher gets $25,000 prize, and then he also gets fully exempt on the Korn Ferry Tour through next season. Finishes 2 through 5. Let me hopefully I get this right. 2 through 5 get exemptions onto the tour. and then you have to earn you have to earn status after that by playing well. But you will get some Korn Ferry Tour starts. You also get which is almost as big, if not bigger, than the Korn Ferry Tour stuff. You also get an exemption through or exemption into the final round of PGA Tour Q School, or the final stage, I guess, not necessarily the final round, the final stage of PGA Tour Q School, which is coming up in, I believe, in late October, November-ish, somewhere around there. So again, Q School this year has changed. There's no more Korn Ferry Tour Q School. It's just straight PGA Tour Q School, and then they divvy up the finishers by whatever it is, and certain number go to the PGA Tour, and others go to get exemptions to the Korn Ferry Tour. But there's no like Korn Ferry Tour Q School like we followed last year. It's just PGA Tour Q School. So, so for Chris, he's ranked 38th on the Fortinet Cup points list. He has one top 5 finish in his short run here on PGA Tour Canada. Made 6 or 7 cuts. So he has to obviously make some progress. He has to kill it in one of these tournaments, maybe win one. But again, it's a 3 tournament stretch. You get points for good finishes. So a great finish, even if he doesn't win a great finish, could certainly jump him up a number of spots. Can he get to getting to number 1? Seems like it would be a tall task, but certainly getting a top 5 finish in the Cup is not necessarily out of the question. Obviously, you have to get off to a good start this week up in Canada and go from there. But getting to number 1 might be hard. Top 5 finish, not sure it's going to be. I don't think that's necessarily out of the question. So a lot going on the pro road. Then, of course, we have the Tour Championship at East Lake. That's underway. It's like 100 degrees down in Atlanta. It's going to be brutal all week as far as the heat goes. I mean, I love the heat. I enjoy it. I wish that heat was up here. But, to have to play it every single day is probably not ideal. I don't know. I would want to do that. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Can Jon Rahm finally play well and lock this thing up? Scotty Scheffler, the same thing. Although Scheffler obviously played well last week. A lot of money coming in on Rory McIlroy, it appears. So big golf, big tournaments coming up all across the tours. So it should be interesting to watch. Again, Patrick and Davis are in the Korn Ferry Tour, and they are jockeying for a position, literally one spot ahead of the other. One player's ahead of the other by 1 spot and like 3 points. So they're taking the motto of rather than just stick together a little too seriously. It feels like so that's what we have going on. That's what we're watching all week. And it should be in the weeks to come. So, and then that'll go right into Q School. So it's the fall, the season locally is kind of over. I know the Riley Mayhem is coming up in a couple of weeks. So that's really the last big tournament here locally. But lots of big happenings in the pro golf, and hopefully everyone will follow our coverage of Chatfield, Welch, and Francoeur, trying to make bigger things happen for themselves in the next coming week. So check that out. Stay tuned for that. Again, pretty unique time in Rhode Island golf to have all these kids be pros or turning pro or whatever it might be. So pretty interesting. Plus yourself, Will Dixon, he's still grinding away. He's getting ready for Q School in a couple of weeks. So and potentially more pros to come. So a unique time at Rhode Island. This is a big few weeks for these guys. And so hopefully they play well, and hopefully we can provide hopefully we can provide some good coverage. So and actually, speaking of coverage, the Korn Ferry Tour is actually going to be on TV, or is on TV on the Golf Channel all week long. I don't know off the top of my head what the coverage hours are, but I'm sure it's probably in the afternoon sometime, I'm imagining. So check that out, especially if these Davis and or Patrick are in contention. on Sunday. It could be pretty exciting to watch and see them on TV. So check those times out. Again, I don't have it. I don't want to be looking things up. Let's see. See if I can find it real quick. I don't really like doing this as far as trying to look things up on my phone. I probably should have figured that out ahead of time. So it starts. All right, so it starts at 9:30 p.m. They're gonna show coverage. Then Saturday and Sunday at 11:30 and 11 p.m. respectively. Apparently, that's strange. Well, check the times on Golf Channel. Check in the afternoon and see if it's on. I can't. That can't be right. They have to be showing it. It's hard to tell. Anyway, like I said, I really didn't want to do that in the middle of a podcast, but I thought maybe I could find it quickly. And the times I found, I guess they're showing it on tape delay. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Anyways, it's going to be on the Golf Channel at some point. Sorry about that. That was some nonsense. I should have done that. But anyway, check that out. Big things happening for these guys. Big weeks for them. So be sure to follow along. So as I mentioned off the top, this week is the Stan Baluik Tournament over at Kirkbrae Country Club. I'm playing with my buddy Dan. Hopefully we'll win the whole thing. I already told Stanley yesterday that he's going to be handing me the trophy on Sunday before he goes back to Florida. So so hopefully my guarantee comes through. But it should be fun. 27 holes on Saturday, 18 on Sunday. I'll have some updates. Stay tuned to our social channels for some maybe some live look-ins and things like that nature. But I'm looking forward to that. And so a couple years ago, I asked Stan if he would do it, and we ended up sitting down and taping a podcast for almost a half an hour. And we had some fun conversations. He told some cool stories, gives some golf advice, talks about the old days of hockey, and then old days of Kirkbrae when he first came here. So it's pretty cool. He was a little nervous, I think, about it, because obviously, he's never done these things before. So he was a little nervous about it, but I got some good stuff out of him. He gave some good stories and talked about his upbringing and how he got into hockey and how he got into golf and everything else. So this was from a couple years ago, but still relevant. And so here's my interview with Stan Baluik, I think a couple years ago. Hope everyone enjoys it. All right, so I think we're good to go. So I'm gonna intro it, and then we'll do it. We'll just go with it. Okay.
All right.
So all right. So 3, 2, 1. Hi everybody, welcome to a special GolfNewsRI production. Stan Baluik, the definitive interview. That's what we're calling it, believe it or not. So joining me is I'm super excited to talk to my buddy and Kirkbrae legend, Ryan legend, Stan Baluik. Thanks so much for taking some time.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
So what's funny is we've already done this podcast like a million times because I talk to you all the time, and we just never taped it or recorded it. So now we're taping it and recording it.
Okay.
So the first question is, why do I suck at golf?
Well, well, I'm a golf pro, not a musician.
All right, fair enough. So I want to start. We'll start with Kirkbrae's 60th anniversary because that's coming up. Obviously, we're taping this a week before the 60th anniversary, and it's a day before your tournament, the Stan Baluik Tournament. So we're going to circle back around to all that stuff, but just to get us started as a jumping off point, Kirkbrae 60 years. When you think of that, what comes to mind when you think of Kirkbrae at 60 years? What do you think?
Well, I came here in 1963, so I've been here 42 years as a PGA golf professional, and the other years I'm retired for 16 years. Still affiliated with Kirkbrae. It's a great club, it's come a long way from when I started. They've done a tremendous job here as far as the golf course, the clubhouse. It's a great, friendly and family club.
Absolutely. And one of the things I was going to get to later, but just to hit on quickly, when you first came here in 1963, you said,
Right.
did you ever think in your life that you'd be here for the rest of your life? Basically, did you think at that time?
Never thought of it. I always thought I'd go back home. I had a small little club in Thunder Bay, Ontario, 9-hole golf course. I played hockey for 8 years as a professional, and I never thought I would end up there at Kirkbrae. I always thought I'd go back to Canada, but I love it here. I love the people. It's just a great place to bring up a family to.
Now, let's go back to Canada for a second. You grew up in Port Arthur, Ontario, Canada.
Yes.
And you were born in 1935.
Exactly.
So talk about your life growing up. What were your parents like? What was it like growing up in Canada during that time?
Well, my parents had a little farm, and my dad, early years, I got in trouble doing something, I don't know, and he told me to go to this golf course and get a job there, so which I did. It was the best thing that ever happened. I met some nice people there, and they introduced me to golf. One of the members I used to caddy for would let me play with his clubs during the week, Monday through Friday. And that's how I started in the golf business.
So you also played hockey. You started hockey at an early age too. And you mentioned that you started in the golf business. It's interesting because you did them both at the same time, and we're going to do it when we get into the hockey and golf. We're going to split it up just so it make it easier for people to follow. But was there ever a doubt? Did you ever have a decision where you had to pick one or the other, or was it always going to be
Well, it
both?
was,
Like, a lot of kids today have a decision, like, I'm going to play baseball
yeah.
or basketball or soccer or, whatever it is.
yeah, well,
Was there a decision that you had to make?
well,
Or
hockey was the big thing in Canada.
shocking?
Yeah, it was, everybody played hockey.
Right.
Education was second, hockey was the big thing, and that's, I played Bantam, midget, junior hockey, all the way up the ranks to professional.
So you become a pro hockey player in 1954. 1954. You played a number of seasons in the minor leagues. You started, believe it or not, with a team with something called the Montreal Royals. Do you remember the Montreal Royals? You played 2 games with them. Do you remember the 2 games?
I played 2 games there, and I played in the Quebec League, a little French town called Chicoutimi. I played a year there. I played 2 years in the Western League.
Was that with the Kitchener Canucks?
No, that was junior hockey. I played in Kitchener for 2 years there, but I played 2 years in the Western League and 5 years here with the Reds.
Right. So you go through all these minor leagues, you go all over the place. At that time, obviously, one, what was hockey like at that time? It was much different than it was today. But 2, what was it like navigating all those leagues during that time? There was no plane travel, wasn't what it is today.
No, it's mostly mostly.
What was that like?
Well, it's mostly driving by bus. We went very seldom. The little time I spent with the Boston Bruins, we did fly and train, but mostly in the minor leagues, you all travel by bus. And it was fun. And when you're, 20 years old, 21, traveling all over the country.
And now at that time, did you see yourself continuing to be a pro, or was it obviously it was a grind?
Well,
Playing all over.
I was in the, I was playing with Boston for a little while, and I was in the corner with Gordie Howe, and he put one hand around my chest, and I couldn't move. And I realized then I gotta get out. You think when you're strong when 21, but I knew then I gotta get out of the sport. It was too tough.
So you played through all these minor league system teams. Like you said, Montreal Royals for 2 games. They played the Kitchener Canucks. I don't think they exist anymore. I think that the Kitchener Rangers now.
Yeah.
But either way, the Victoria Cougars,
Right.
Springfield Indians. I wrote that all down. So,
Yeah.
and then you come to Providence in 1959 to play with the Providence Reds. Obviously a legendary team here, something that people romanticize about. And you played the Ryan Auditorium, which obviously no longer exists, but it's famous. So obviously I'm too young to remember that, but what was the Ryan Auditorium like? What was it like playing there? Any cool stories?
Well, the story I can tell you, the first year I was there in 59, 60, I came to Rhode Island. They had chicken wire. And, you know,
Like
as
a mom.
as a hockey player, you know, you go into the corners, but I never did go in the corners because big guys will hurt you there. But anyways, you always had to put your elbows up so that you wouldn't go through the screen. And I said to myself, what am I doing here with this rink? But the fans, people there are wonderful people, great hockey fans, great hockey fans.
Now you play rookie year in Providence with the Providence Reds.
Yes.
You win AHL Rookie of the Year.
Yes.
What was that? What was that feeling like? I mean, you had obviously a great season.
Well, I had some, yeah, it was a great season for me, but I had some good teammates that,
Yeah, like who? Who did you play with?
that I worked with, Jimmy Bartlett and Pierre Briand. They were good teammates, and I knew exactly where they were all the time on the ice, so it was easy for me.
Now the next season, or in the middle of that season, whichever it was, it's hard to tell with the dates.
Yeah.
But you get called up to Boston, the big time. You make the big time in the
Yes,
NHL.
yes.
Nowadays, guys get called up and sent back all the time. They fly a plane and
Yeah.
or get on a plane and go to wherever they have to go. Back then, when you get called up to Boston, you call up to the NHL. How did that work back then? Obviously,
Well,
a phone of some sort. Or a
Yeah,
letter,
it was
or
exciting. It was exciting when they called me up, you know. I signed a contract with Boston for, I believe it was 7,500. I thought I was making $1 million.
Yeah, well, back then,
But
7,500
back
was a lot
then it
of
was
money.
fun, you know, back then you could, you know, do a lot of things. You could buy a car,
Yeah.
put a down payment on the house. I mean, those days were different, but it was exciting playing with Boston for a short time.
And who was on the Bruins team back then?
Well,
Who the fans know?
Mill Schmidt was the coach.
Mhm.
But there were some Leo Bean. I don't know if you remember him, but he was a great defenseman, and Fields. They had a lot of great players. McKinney,
Mhm.
but I enjoyed playing with them.
What was hockey? What was the game of hockey like back then? Obviously, we see it now, and it's fast paced and it's kind of crazy big hits. What was the game like back then, just in
Well,
general?
it was more. There was more finesse to the game. You know, today's game has changed.
Yep.
Kids are a lot bigger. They shoot it in. They all go in. When we played, the defensemen were never allowed to go into the corners. They always stayed back,
Mhm.
so they wouldn't get caught. So the game has changed quite a bit. I couldn't play today, and they're too big now. I mean, they're 6'4", 6'5". I mean, they're huge,
Mhm.
and the game has altogether changed.
Do you
from
think it's
that.
changed for the better? Do you think it's a better game
I
today than
think
it was?
so. I think it's better today.
Now you're playing hockey. Now you meet your wife Margaret. When did that happen? How did that come about?
That happened in high school.
Happened in high school. What
She was
school?
a cheerleader, and I met her when I think I was 15 or 16 years old. And we had a good life. She passed away about 16 years ago from breast cancer.
Yep.
So we had a good life. We had three children.
So what was that like back then? Because you always hear about balancing, pro athletes balancing the family life and and having to take their families with them a lot of times in a lot of cases. Obviously, some of them have more money than others, so it's a little bit easier. But for you back at that time, you said you had 3 kids, all of which worked at Kirkbrae at one point, right?
Yes,
something like that.
Yeah,
Something close?
they all
Yeah.
caddied pretty
Yeah.
well. And my
So-
daughter worked in the pro shop for years.
Yep. Until relatively recently, actually.
Right.
So what was that like going through that with your family, when being a pro athlete at that time, trying to make kind of ends meet, if you will?
Well, it was, schooling was important to me. When we came to Providence, they had to change schools from Thunder Bay. It was a little difficult, but it got to a point where I wanted to quit playing hockey and settle down and stay in one place.
So you retired from hockey in 1964. You finished your career with 234 goals, and 124 of them came with the Providence Reds, according to the stats that I looked up last night. So that's pretty impressive. 234 goals. That's 234 more than I have. But you leave hockey in 64, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you basically knew you were done, right? There was no desire to even keep playing.
No,
You were done.
I decided I had a better life in golf than playing hockey.
So let's get into the golf side of it now. You leave hockey. You're already a pro golfer. You won the Canadian Open at 15.
Yeah.
And you won the Ontario, or you played in this Canadian Open, and you won the Ontario Jumpers.
Juniors.
Juniors. So you turned pro, actually turned pro golfer in 1955, right? At 19 years old.
Right.
What did that at that time? What did turning pro mean to you? What is?
Well, it was important.
What were the perks? Anything?
Well, it was a start. I loved golf since I was, a youngster. So
What drew you to golf? Was it because it was the same as hockey? The slap shot was the same as the golf
pretty
swing?
well. It's pretty well.
You
the
see
same.
golfers, hockey players all the time play golf.
Most hockey players can hit the ball a long way because
Mhm.
they develop their back muscles and their legs. So they most of them I know that played are pretty good golfers. They can hit the ball a long
Mhm.
way.
Yeah, we've seen it here at Brian Berard and Brian Boucher when you see here at Market, and
Right.
so that's what drew you to golf. That was just kind of the same motion as hockey. Then
Right.
you didn't have to change
Exactly.
anything. Talk about Fort William Country Club. How important was that place in getting you started?
It was a 9-hole golf course.
Yeah.
It worked out perfect with my schedule with hockey. The summers were really short. They were from May to end of September, and that's when hockey started. So the combination worked perfect for me at that time.
Now you go on the pro tour. You won the Vermont Open in '65. You won the Ryan Open in '71. You've told me some stories before, but what kind of golf stories do you have from your days of competing as a pro?
The tournaments that I won, the Open in Rhode Island, it was just I could put the eyes out of the ball at that time, And as you got older, forget it.
Was that the strength of your game, putting?
Yeah, at that time, I hit the ball decent, but I could put the eyes out of it one time.
So when you won the Ryan Open and even the Vermont Open, who were some of the guys you were competing against? But Dana Quigley was in the field.
I beat Dana probably only once, and that was in Rhode Island. That was at Valley Country Club. I beat him by one shot, but that's the only time I ever beat him. He was a tremendous golfer. Well, we had some great golfers here. Brad Faxon was one of the, Billy Andre. So we had a lot of good golfers.
Absolutely. So you go through the pro golf ranks competing. Your name's head pro of Kirkbrae in 1964, like you mentioned off the top, and you've been a legend here ever since. But when you came here to Kirkbrae, obviously it wasn't what it is now. What give an idea of what it was like, what it looked like?
Well, when I came here, it was it needed a lot of help. It was the fairways were all messed up. The greens were bad. Everything was really. And over the years, the club has improved tremendously. It really has. It's a very friendly club, and the amenities here are unbelievable. Swimming pool. We have everything here, and that's about it.
Did you ever think that it would get to that point?
I never thought it would be what it is today. I mean, the people that were in charge of it did a tremendous job here improving this golf course.
So two of the guys that I memorialized here with plaques are who I never met. I came here in 2005 as a caddy. So two of the guys that I memorialized here are Jerry Sansevieri and Frank Galashaw.
And Carl Lisa. He's still here, but
he's still here.
He's the one that's head of everything. He's done a tremendous job here.
When you think of Jerry Sansevieri and Frank Galashaw, what comes to mind? What stories come to mind, and what would they think of Kirkbrae now if they were still
well? I remember Frankie, who's a personal friend of mine, and when we built this clubhouse, he was kind of disappointed that people weren't coming here. And I sat down with one day. He said, Stan, I'm disappointed, but they will come. And he was right. They are coming. I mean, we're full right now.
How about Jerry?
Jerry was a gentleman. He wanted the course to improve, and he had a lot of insight on what to do with the golf course and the clubhouse.
Now you talk about your career here as a head pro. At last check, you've had approximately 10 of your quote unquote apprentices go on to become head pros elsewhere. Obviously, one of them is here, Mike Bradshaw. He's not the head pro anymore, but he's the GM and a director of golf operations.
Yeah.
So that still counts. When you think about that, why do you think why do you think your head pro tree has had so much success? In football, I have the Belichick coaching tree, and how all of his assistant coaches go on to suck.
Yeah,
And Bill
yeah.
Parcells has a coaching tree,
Yeah.
and probably the same in other sports as well. You have a head pro tree. Why do you think guys who worked under you have had success?
I try to train most of my assistants to respect the members highly, wherever they wanted, never say no, always say yes and do it. So most of them are, I can't remember all of them, but they're all been very successful.
Now, you obviously, what was it like to work with your kids? You obviously had your kids here with you for the longest time, like you said. Your daughter Karen just left her pro shop job recently. I think
Right.
last year or the year before, whatever it might have been. And she was a fixture in the pro shop for a number of years. But what was it like to have your kids with you here for a long time?
Oh, it was very enjoyable. They both caddied. Karen worked here for 30-some years. It was a joy to be with them all the time.
So over the years, you obviously, like you tell us about, you're a legend. You have this, the Stan Baluik Drive, which is about 30 yards that way. The sign. You have the Stan Baluik Tournament. Recently, they came up with the Stan Baluik Scholarship. Did you ever think any of that would happen? And what does that all mean to you?
Well, it's very important to me. I mean, the scholarship was very important to me. It gives some money to some of the kids that can't afford to pay their tuition fee. So that was very important to me, the scholarship.
What do you think? What do you think your legacy is? What do you think you want to be remembered by? Obviously, you have a long way to go. But what do you think? But what do you think your legacy is here, or just in general?
Just to be a good professional PGA member and help members as much as you can to improve their game. That's my goal, always to help somebody.
And you're always giving tips, whether you're in the locker room or at the bar, or sometimes even on a real golf course.
Right.
After you're beating me. When we talk about hockey compared, the old days compared to today. So we'll do the same with golf. Obviously, we have a number of great players here. John O'Clair has obviously won 13 titles. Ty McCormick, obviously our amateur champion. Mike Hamilton, young stud coming up, and others such as Derek Audette and Pat Healy and everybody else. When you look at the game of golf today, whether it's here or kind of on the pro tour today, what do you think of it? What do you think of it? What do you see in the game today?
Well, today, they hit it too long now. I mean, they hit it tremendously. Even though some of the small players, you don't think they could hit 100 yards. Now they hit it 300. So the hitting the ball a long way is a big edge today. I think Jack Nicklaus was right. They have to do something with the ball to slow it down a little. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but
is it the ball or is it the
equipment? Well, the equipment has something to do with it too. I believe that too. But the ball is the big thing. It travels too far now.
Back then, back when you played, it didn't travel anywhere.
No. If you hit it 250, it was a long way those days. Now they hit it 300. I mean, they build golf courses and they're outdated. They can just blast them over those traps.
What do you think the future? Obviously, you're celebrating 60 years of Kirkbrae as well. But what do you think the next 60 years holds for?
Well, I hope
we've come a long way. We've come a long way in 60 years.
Well, I don't know how much they can improve. I'm sure it will, with the membership and everything. But it definitely will improve. I mean, I don't know how much it can improve because we've done so much work over the years, and the course is really in nice shape right now.
What's your favorite hole?
Probably my favorite hole would probably be 18.
18.
Yeah,
it's a cool hole, stadium hole.
Yeah. It's a good finishing hole.
All right, two more questions, couple more questions, then we'll get you out of here. I want your best hockey story and your best golf story.
Oh, my best hockey story. I used to play with we called the B line, and we had Pierre Briand was a little guy, but he could score goals, and I always would make sure the puck went in front of him, But a lot of times the defenseman would come at him at the blue line and he'd trip over the blue line. And I said, Pierre, you can't trip over. But that was one of the hockey stories. Golf stories, God, there's so many of them. I wish I could remember. But at my age, I forget a lot of things now.
You told me a few. Didn't you have a interaction with, you were competing with a Ben Hogan or something along those lines?
I'm trying to think now. I've seen them all. I've seen them all hit Hogan when I qualified for the National PGA. I watched Hogan for 18 holes. He was an amazing player.
So it was interesting with GolfNewsRI. We just did. We helped promote a book about the open question by Peter May about how Ben Hogan won the 1942 Hail America, and he thought all those years it was counted as a U.S. Open, and it never counted as a U.S. Open. So it's interesting to learn a lot about Ben Hogan through that book and that whole story.
There's one story I could tell you about Ben Hogan. A friend of mine was the sales manager for the Hogan Company, and Hogan had retired, and one of the newspaper, the media, one of the newspapermen asked him, why don't you play the senior tour? It's just starting. It'd be a big draw. And he looked at him. He says, I don't want to finish second. And that was a great answer. I don't want to finish second.
As the senior tour was created by somebody from Rhode Island, right? I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, but yeah. And then that's pretty cool. So last thing, and then we'll get you out of here. I know you have golf to play. I'm sure you're practice for your tournament because you're going to win again. As you beat me last year. So I don't hear any nonsense about how you can't play anymore because you won your division last year. So I don't want to hear about it. You know, everything you've done, you know, your whole career, hockey, golf, Kirkbrae. If you could do it all again, would you do anything different?
No, I'd do the same thing. You know, I might have thought about education a little more when I was young. You know, instead of playing. My goal was to be,
Pro athlete,
and a good golfer and a good hockey player.
Well, like you said, hockey in Canada back in those days, hockey was more important than education, right? Hockey was
big time. That was the whole thing. Was hockey.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sitting down with me for a handful of minutes. Thanks for everything you do for me and for Kirkbrae, and we love you, and thanks for everything you do.
All right. Thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Stan Baluik, everybody. Everyone has a great day. All right. Thanks for tuning in to everybody. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, to today's episode of the Golf Dudes podcast. Hope everyone has a great week, a great weekend, and good luck in all your golf endeavors this weekend. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Bye.